Robbo. Thanks for tuning in. For those who don't know, I am a trans man and I created this YouTube channel as a way to track the changes in my body as I go from feminine to masculine throughout my transition. I talk about what it's like to be trans, various challenges I face, and ways of coping with the overall heaviness of everything. I also talk about tech and mental health and a bunch of other things, so I hope you'll stick around. Today, I want to talk about something that'll be a huge part of my journey as a trans man, aligning my legal identity with my gender identity. If you're trans or know someone who is, you probably know the feeling of battling with all the paperwork. It's like a huge, intimidating mountain, and sometimes you just want to scream at all the forms. For me, this isn't just about a name or a letter on a document or ID. It's about dignity, safety, and being truly seen for who I am. It's a fundamental step in affirming my identity, but man, it can be complicated. So today I'm going to walk you through what will be my personal process. I haven't changed my legal name or gender marker yet, but this is how I plan on doing so when it's time. The plan is to talk about what I am and am not doing, including the decision not to change my birth certificate and why that's a powerful statement about midlife transition. We're talking about changing my legal name where I live in Georgia, updating my social security and my Georgia driver's license and my U.S. passport. It's not always going to be straightforward, and there are some real differences between state and federal agencies, but I hope that sharing my plan sheds some light on the process for anyone going through something similar. Also, please note that this is just for my experience. What I plan to do might not work for you in your state, so if you follow in my footsteps, do so at your own peril. My plan is the result of literally months of research to figure out where and how and when to update what and with whom, and your state might operate in a completely different way than my state does. So do your own research and be sure of your process before you begin, okay? Okay, let's get started. You might be wondering, why bother with all of this? Why is legal affirmation so important? Well, for starters, it's about safety and reducing daily misgendering. Imagine if every time you show an ID, whether it's at the bank or the airport or picking up a package, you're essentially coming out of the closet all over again, or worse, you end up being purposefully misgendered by the people who see your ID. It's exhausting, it's demoralizing, and more than that, it can put me in a vulnerable situation. Beyond that, there are so many practical reasons. Employment, housing applications, healthcare, voting, travel, everything requires accurate legal documents. Having them align with who I am means less friction, less explaining, and frankly, just less anxiety in my daily life. But for me, there's a deeper and more emotional level. Changing my name, especially, feels like a monumental step. It's a point of no return sort of feeling. Once I legally change my name to Robert, that name is permanently on my record as an American citizen. And sure, I could change it back legally, but it would always still be there as a past alias. When I have to do security clearance stuff for my job, I have to list every legal name I've ever used. That means my birth name, my married name, and soon my masculine name. And eventually the names add up. So this isn't just a casual decision. It's a profound commitment to who I actually am and who I have the potential to become. That can feel incredibly nerve-wracking, especially for an autistic someone like me who's spent a lifetime learning how to navigate complex social situations and sometimes having to blend into them for safety. Fully stepping into my Robertness, legally, means removing the option of blending in as a woman if I ever feel the need to. It feels very vulnerable. And speaking of vulnerability, I want to address something real quick that's sometimes thrown at trans people. The idea that our identity is somehow caused by the trauma we've experienced. I've had a massively traumatic childhood, for those who don't know, and it left me with a lot of proverbial and physical scars that I've had to deal with over the years. I've had people, family even, suggest that my being trans is the result of my difficult childhood. And yes, my childhood was incredibly tough. I haven't really talked about it on the channel yet, but I was neglected, spent a lot of time hungry, and was trafficked as a kid on top of all the family stuff. So I've got a lot of trauma going on, but I want to be crystal clear. I'm trans because I'm trans. It's an innate part of who I am, a truth I felt even as a young child before all the traumatic stuff happened. It's not a reaction to my trauma. It certainly wasn't caused by anyone else's abuse or neglect. It just is. And in case you were wondering, I've been in therapy for more than 21 years, learning how to deal with all the stuff I went through, and I'm doing really well. Trauma can be overcome. It takes a lot of hard work, and it takes being honest about the things that other people like to lie to themselves about. I don't have the luxury of being able to lie to myself the way other people can. I have to be honest and authentic in everything I do so that I can overcome my trauma, which is what brought me to the conclusion that I can't live my life as a lie. I had to come out as trans because that's the only way that I can be honest and authentic with myself. So yeah, my gender identity is distinct from my trauma, period. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the legal transition process itself. It's a multi-stage journey, and it really highlights how different states and even the federal government approach these identity changes. My name change process will follow 3 main steps: legal name change in Georgia, changing my social security records, and then updating my passport with my new name. The very first step for me is going to be getting my legal name changed here in Georgia, where I currently live. This process happens through the Superior Court in your county of residence. It's not an immediate process. It takes some time, and it's not cheap. Legally changing your name in Georgia generally involves a court filing fee of around $200 to $250, depending on your county, plus a newspaper publication fee of about $80, and additional costs for any certified copies you may want to receive. First, you file a petition of name change with the court. Then there's usually a requirement to publish a notice in a local newspaper. For me, that's once a week for 4 weeks, letting everyone know that I'm requesting this name change in the local paper. And this is done to give creditors a chance to know that you're changing your name in case you're trying to avoid debts. After that publication period, you usually have a court hearing where the judge will hopefully sign off on your name change request. From filing for a name change to getting that certified court order approving it typically takes 2 to 4 months here in Georgia. But it's a foundational document. Once I have that certified court order, it's like my golden ticket to start changing everything else. Once I have that name change court order, the next step will be to update my records with the Social Security Administration. This is a super important step because so many other agencies, like the Department of Motor Vehicles or the Passport Agency, often cross-reference or verify against your Social Security Administration records. So you want everything to be consistent. In order to do this, I'll have to go to the Social Security offices in person, and I'll need to fill out a form, show my certified court order for the name change, and some kind of proof of identity like my current driver's license or passport in order to prove that I am who I say I am. Now, for the gender marker on your Social Administration record, the good news is that the Social Security Administration generally doesn't require any kind of surgical letter. That is, a letter from a surgeon affirming that you've had some kind of irreversible gender-affirming surgery, usually bottom surgery, to change your gender from one to the other. For the Social Security Administration, you can often self-attest or just provide a doctor's letter from your hormone replacement therapist stating that you're on hormone therapy and that your gender of choice is male. So that's a relatively straightforward part of the process, and that sets the stage for everything else that is to come after. Okay, this is where my plan has taken a pretty significant turn, and I wanted to talk through why. My original plan was to change my New Jersey birth certificate because it's thankfully easier to change my New Jersey birth certificate than it would be if I were born in Georgia. New Jersey allows you to change your gender marker without medical documentation or surgery or anything like that. Basically, you just have to pay a small fee for the reprinting of your birth certificate and you're good to go. But after a lot more thought and research, I've decided not to change my birth certificate from female to male right now. And here's why. My transition is a midlife affirmation of my gender. It's not about correcting an error on my birth certificate from when I was born. When I was born, I was assigned female, and that was accurate for that moment in time. When I was born, I was assigned female. My birth certificate isn't wrong about my sex assigned at birth. My gender identity is what has evolved and been affirmed by my coming out of the closet. I was always male in my head, but biologically, I was born female, and no amount of hormones or surgery will be able to change that physiological fact. Changing my birth certificate to male now, even though I was assigned female at birth, creates a kind of retroactive legal fiction that I don't feel entirely comfortable with, especially when it comes to navigating other states' laws. My birth certificate is a record of my birth, and at birth, I was assigned female. My identity as a man now doesn't change that historical fact. More practically, and this one is a core issue for me, I'm worried about creating an even bigger conflict down the road with my Georgia driver's license. Georgia's Department of Driver Services policies are still incredibly strict about gender marker changes, essentially requiring proof of surgery before they'll change the gender marker on your ID. If I change my birth certificate to male without having had surgery, and then present that to the Georgia Driver Services Department, then it could lead to them questioning my identity even more rigorously, or rejecting my request for a driver's license gender marker change outright because my birth certificate would say male, but I didn't meet their surgical requirements. It creates a mismatch that could be a significant hurdle. So for now, my New Jersey birth certificate will remain as it is. It's a record of my birth. And my journey as a trans man is about moving forward, not necessarily rewriting my past biological details on every single document. It's a stand against the idea that trans people need to retroactively erase their pasts in order to be valid in their presence. Now, here's where the complexities really begin to stack up, especially for trans individuals navigating different state laws. When it comes to getting my driver's license information changed here in Georgia, the rules get a lot trickier. For my name change, my Georgia court order will be sufficient. But for the gender marker on my Georgia driver's license, the Department of Driver Services has its own specific requirements. They typically want either a court order or a physician's letter that explicitly states your name, date of birth, and the date of gender reassignment operation or surgical procedure. Now, some people have been approved for gender marker change on their driver's license with just a top surgery, but generally, Georgia expects a bottom surgery of some type. Either way, you have to commit to the bit before Georgia will approve a new gender marker on your driver's license, and you have to have proof in paperwork form that you did so before they'll even consider changing your gender marker. This means that even if I had amended my birth certificate, that alone wouldn't likely be enough to bypass Georgia's surgical requirement for the gender marker on my ID. I'm going to try to get a letter from my hormone replacement therapy doctor stating that I'm doing hormone therapy and listing my chosen gender, but the language from the Department of Driver Services about gender reassignment surgery makes me feel cautious about whether or not a letter will even be accepted unless it specifically references some kind of surgical date. It's a frustrating hurdle, and it means that I'll likely still face challenges in getting my Georgia driver's license to fully reflect my gender without having some kind of surgery. I hadn't planned to even have top surgery for at least 4 or 5 years, and I was on the fence about whether to have a bottom surgery at all. So, as you can imagine, this hurdle is particularly troubling for me. Finally, we get to the U.S. passport. This is a federal document, and again, its requirements have recently changed, and unfortunately, not in a way that helps many trans individuals. For the name change, my certified Georgia court order will work perfectly fine. But for the gender marker, the U.S. State Department has recently unfortunately changed its policy in early 2025 to match the stated goals of the Trump administration. They're now issuing passports with either male or female markers that are intended to match the passport holder's biological sex at birth, and they are no longer issuing an X undesignated marker at all. This means that if you apply for a gender marker that's different from your sex assigned at birth, you may experience significant delays, and they might request additional documentation to establish your biological sex. Even if my birth certificate from New Jersey stated that my birth sex was male, it'd still be an uphill battle because my previous passport was issued as female. And God forbid I'm able to change my legal gender on my Georgia ID, but not on my passport or vice versa. Having mismatching forms of identification is a sure way to run into major delays when you're traveling internationally. This is a huge setback for many trans people seeking accurate federal identification, and it means getting my passport to reflect my true gender might be very challenging, if not impossible. Honestly, the key thing for me is going to be getting a passport that has my chosen name on it, even if they issue it with a female gender marker. Provided my driver's license gender marker and other identification match the passport, even if they all say female, it'd still be alright. It means having to answer questions every time I show off my ID, but I can live with that if I have to. Or I guess I just don't travel. As you can see, it's not a simple little checklist. It's a long journey with twists and turns, state-specific hurdles, and ever-changing federal policies. But despite all the paperwork, the waiting, and the frustrating requirements, every step in the process is incredibly important. For me, having the right name on my ID is about validation, seeing my true self reflected on official documents. It's about dignity, not having to explain or justify my existence every time I show an ID. And it's about safety, reducing those moments where I might be misgendered or outed against my will. This entire journey is a testament to the courage it takes to live authentically. It'll be a continuous act of affirming who I am, even when the system makes it challenging. It reminds me that despite all the obstacles, my identity is real and it's worth fighting for. It's also a part of my broader healing journey. Aligning my external world with my internal truth is deeply connected to the work that I'm doing in therapy and in recovery, learning to be compassionate with myself and living honestly. I know this is a long process, especially here in Georgia, but the plan for me is to eventually move to a blue state up north in a few years after my youngest child finishes primary school. Although it's not very likely, I'm hoping that by the time I get up there, the federal legal landscape for trans people will be more affirming and less restrictive, which would make life a little bit easier for me and people like me. But until then, I will keep pushing forward one step at a time. So that's a glimpse into my legal transition journey. It's complex, it's emotional, and it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. But to me, it's a vital part of living authentically. If you're watching this and you're on a similar path, or just considering it, please know that you're not alone. Do your research, understand your state's specific laws, and reach out to legal aid organizations or trans-affirming attorneys if you can. It's a lot to navigate, but your authentic self is worth fighting for. Thank you so much for watching and for joining me on this journey. If this was helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel for more updates, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or experiences. I would love to hear from you, and I appreciate the engagement. And if you have a mean comment, please know that I will pray for you. I understand what it feels like to see someone else taking steps you wish you could take, and being too afraid to step outside of what society expects you to do. I understand feeling angry that someone else is living in a way that you secretly wish you could live. I get it. I don't begrudge you that frustration. And I am living in a way that you wish you could live. I will pray for you to find peace and understanding, to be brave enough to live an authentic life for yourself. For the rest of you, stay safe, stay real, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, and for those who are keeping track, this is week 4 on testosterone. All right, have a good one.